Weekly Shonen Jump in 2025, depending on how things turn out in the future and who you are, might be labelled a good or bad year. But in all honesty, I really enjoyed a lot of the new debut manga this year, as well as what actually happened throughout the year in some of my favourite manga. So, what are the best chapters of 2025? In my opinion, at least. Today, that's what we're here to talk about, but I won't just be giving you a top 10 or anything like that. Instead, we'll be going through every single issue of Weekly Shonen Jump one by one that came out in 2025, and I'll tell you a little about my favourite chapter in each issue, totaling at 48 total chapters across a few different manga. Some issues, of course, had multiple amazing chapters, and I might like certain series more or less than you, so if you feel I've missed something crucial, a moment you adored from this year, please let me know about it in the comments below. This video is about sharing what I enjoyed about the magazine this year, and I'd encourage everyone else to do the same too. So, without further ado, let's dive into our first issue of Jump and my favourite chapter from it. For issue 1, we have One Piece chapter 1132, Adventure in Elbaf. This is the chapter where we finally reach Elbaf, and we've been waiting for this for so many years. And Oda, I feel, delivered with this fantastic chapter with these amazing spreads, cameos from beloved characters like Doori and Broggy as well. This chapter just filled me full of wonder, so it makes sense why it would be my first favourite chapter of the year. For issue 2, we have One Piece chapter 1133, Nice Things, which continues on from the last chapter I mentioned, but more importantly, we see Soul and Robin reunite. Robin's flashback and overall story is one of my favourite things in the series, so this chapter was nothing but cathartic. For issue 3, we have Mission Yozakura Family 255, Taiyo and Kyoshiro. This chapter sees the final battle properly conclude with some nice moments between Taiyo and Kyoshiro. There are also some great spreads, and there's an overall aura of finality to this chapter which is really nice, and it sold me on the fact that this series ended very well. For issue 4-5, we have Undead Unluck 236, Heart. This is another series having a big climax moment. In this one, it's the actual kind of big climax moment, and we get 3 back-to-back double-page spreads at the very end from Tezuka, and it's nothing less than wicked sick. Just a very cool final moment kind of chapter. For issue 6-7, we have Kagurabachi chapter 63, Car Chase. This is a chapter of Kagurabachi with some insane action involving a car/bike chase, which is a ton of fun. Plus there's quite a bit of food for thought in dialogue from Chihiro about how he goes about saving others while not relying on anyone, and this kind of sets up his arc of finally letting people into his inner circle and relying on them. So good action and good writing moments. For issue 8, we have Mission Yozakura Family 258. The Yozakura family's mission continues on. This is the finale of the series, and it's a brilliant and charming chapter that shows just how close the family has grown, as well as how much they've stayed their same silly selves. It's a really great send-off to the series. Issue 9, controversially, isn't Undead Unluck's ending, but Ichi the Witch Chapter 19, Magic Circle. This is a really strong chapter showing us Ichi's inner magic circle with all of his captured magics, which is fun, but also we get the ongoing fight between Discaris, Togeise, and the World Hater Magic, which has some nice dialogue and some cool scenes there as well. For issue 10, we have Akane Banashi 144, I Have Something. This is perhaps one of my favourite chapters of the entire series that sees us glimpse into Akane's time in France, where we get to see that despite being lonely and isolated in another country, she still has Rakugo, which lets her connect to people all around the world. This chapter's message bolsters the entire series, I feel, and shows us how powerful art can be as a connective force, nothing short of a masterpiece. Issue 11, we have Witch Watch 189, Jaime's Road to Manga Creation. This is a very meta chapter focusing on Jaime, who is an in-universe mangaka. Here, Shinohara utilizes his connections with Jump ecchi manga artist and brother-in-law Kentaro Yabuki to explore the idea of creating an ecchi manga in Jump or other magazines and how that's evolved over time. It's very fun, informative, educational, and it's just a very fun chapter as a longtime fan of the magazine. For issue 12, we have Akane Banashi 146, I'm Back. This chapter sees Akane perform Rakugo again in Tokyo, where she acts out a short story called Yawning Lessons to the audience. The authors really sell just how much Akane has improved, I think, through both the writing and the art, and there's some stellar double-page spreads in this chapter. For issue 13, we have Akane Banashi 147, Maybe All Powerful. Continuing on from the previous chapter, this one illustrates how Akane has grown during her time in France again through her mastery of this free-flowing tone. This also has a great color spread too. Issue 14 is another Akane Banashi chapter, Akane Banashi 148, the Futatsume arc begins. This chapter finishes off this yawning story, and without parroting what I've said already about the last few chapters, it also hypes up what's to come by showing you bits and pieces of other characters reacting to Akane, setting up the titular Futatsume arc. Issue 15 is Ichi the Witch Chapter 25, The Joyous Country. This chapter dumps us into the Bakugami arc proper. It sets the stage well for what's to come, gives us insights into new characters, and provides us with many spreads, as well as 3 color pages and 1 color spread as well. Ichi the Witch is literally killing it at this point in the magazine, and this chapter is just really fun and just shows that there's a lot more to come in the series. For issue 16, we have Ichi the Witch, Chapter 26, Lord Bakugami. This follows on from the previous chapter. We learn more about Bakugami, the country itself, as well as the magic that lords over it, a tapir that absorbs everyone's sadness. There's some good dialogue from here from memory, as well as just the general concept is really solid and drew me in. For issue 17, we have Star of Beethoven Chapter 7, The Entrance Exam. Here Yaso plays Beethoven's Appassionata as part of an entrance exam. It melds in real-world history about Beethoven, his 32 sonatas, and Yaso's past with piano quite beautifully, binding it all together into a plea from Yaso that he be allowed to continue playing the piano, realizing how much it means to him again. It also introduces us to the Agents, a pair of characters that others seem to feel muddy the series, but I think they added a bunch of intrigue to this chapter and the story overall at this point while reading. For issue 18, we have Kagurabachi Chapter 73, Daybreak. This is a sobering chapter focusing on Samura and his relationship with his daughter Iori, where he comes to realize that her just being associated with him causes her pain, and fearing the worst possible outcomes, he decides it would be better if she never even knew he existed. This chapter digs into the swords and their users with the idea that pain and hurt will always follow them based on the deeds they've done. The cycle of violence ripples out in cruel ways and even touches innocent children. For issue 19, we have Embers Chapter 10, What Can I Do? This chapter sees Kosei go up against Iba Seiryu and the main character Haitani overwhelmed at not being able to help his team. It's a great demonstration of his character, his fear that despite doing his best he hasn't changed and he'll let others down, forever labelled as a useless delinquent, but he gets a really nice pep talk from the captain who tells him to calm down and do what only he can do. Embers gets a ton of flack, but when it comes to Haitani, I feel like he's a very well realized character, and moments like this back that up. It's also just a chapter that made me feel very safe and seen, if that makes sense. The pep talk was just nice and very comforting and warming, and I didn't expect that from a manga like Embers. Issue 20, we have Akane Banashi 154, No Fun. This is a chapter that predominantly focuses on Hikaru hearing about Akane's return. It's nice to see her again, there's some good art here and there, and it hypes her up as a threat for Akane to be wary of for the future Zoo-in prize competition. For issue 21, we have Kagurabachi 76, Banquet. This is a chapter full of chaos, seeing Chihiro, Samura, the Masumi, and the Hishaku blitz through the Kyoto Bloodshed Hotel. There's a ton of flashy action here, a cool fake-out death through Hirohiko's ability, and some great artwork that's pretty memorable. For the joint issue 22-23, we have Kagurabachi 77, No Longer Relevant. This is an epic three-way fight between Samura, Chihiro, and Hirohiko that's peppered with some really evocative artwork, and we get some more backstory and info on Hirohiko too, which I found very interesting. The colour spread for this chapter is also really nice, showcasing the characters and their fathers, which is a reoccurring thing throughout Kagurabachi, of the younger generation and the older generation and how they kind of intersect, so I really like the art there. For issue 24, we have One Piece 1148, Ronja. Deeper into Elbaf, the celestial dragons move into their plan to kidnap the giant children, using them as hostages to burn down Elbaf's school and library. There's a hopelessness to this chapter, and the way it shows the big villains destroying things like the giants' culture, heritage, and the institutions that benefit everyone, and specifically the children, it colours them as these unfathomably evil but well-realised villains. They do kind of act cartoonish, but it is grounded in the real world, and the actual things they do, the burnings of these books and libraries and schools, is a very real and sinister evil. Ronja, the titular child of this chapter, then stands up to this and maintains that she believes the school and library are important, more so than perhaps her own life, and it's the brave front that she maintains through tears that I find really heartbreaking and moving, which made this chapter my favourite of the issue. For issue 25, we have Witchwatch 202, It's Love. This chapter explores the feelings of both Nico and Moi and the often messy dynamic between child and adult characters when it comes to romance. It handles it very well with heart, allowing feelings to be exchanged, listened to, but focusing ultimately on what Nico needs most in this moment, which is a caregiver. Love comes in many forms, and it can still be expressed without romance. Case in point, Moi's "Nico, you're important to me" is filled with a genuine care that exceeds the mere bond of childhood sweethearts. It's a fantastic and nuanced chapter that could have easily been one of the worst in the series, and yet it's one of the best. For issue 26, we have Blue Box 197, Take It Slow. This is a transitory chapter that sees Chinatsu move into her own apartment. There's a lot of nice little moments and dialogue between her and Taiki. It's both very comfy and a bit lonely as the two go about their lives in a slow and steady way. It also made me think back to my time moving out or into uni, so there's a nice feeling of growth to this chapter as well as nostalgia for me. Issue 27, we have Star of Beethoven, Chapter 16, The Tribe of Pianists. This chapter really sees Beethoven abandon its plot, I feel. A few chapters before the end, it takes a step back from its other ideas to focus on Yasso, why he plays and loves the piano, and the conversation he has with Beethoven is very resonant to me as an artist. What are his ideals and reasons for doing what he does? What informs Yasso's love of piano? For as messy as the series could be, it puts a great weight on the power of art and on music, and I think this is an exemplary chapter that shows that and its importance. For issue 28, we have Kagurabachi 82, Enten vs Tobimune. We dig into Samura's reasoning for what he's doing here, making him a lot more sympathetic as a character, but also foolish, rounding him out as a character as well. This chapter shows the past still haunts the sword bearers, and it puts future generations at risk, so Samura killing that past through severing ties is pretty interesting, though Chihiro, through what he's learned throughout the last arc, asserts that this isn't something he can do alone, which initiates a very flashy fight. I think it shows great growth on Chihiro's part, and it just sets up a really cool fight between these two where their ideals clash. For issue 29, we have Star of Beethoven Chapter 18, The Tempest of Claude Sakami. This is a really emotionally vulnerable chapter as we approach the end of the series. Sakami's performance of The Tempest highlights the emotional origins of the different ways you can play the piano. Yasso also grapples with his fears of loss and loss of love towards the piano here too, enriching his character. But the part I like the most is the idea that everyone performs and creates differently for a multitude of reasons, and sometimes the reason being is just to exist and express yourself for one single moment. The build up to Yasso playing Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata and the accompanying pages is beautiful, and I love how reflective it is surrounding why we make or resonate with art. For issue 30, we have Kaitagami Chapter 1, A Normal Family. Kaitagami has had one of my favourite first chapters of a work ever, which I've yapped about pretty extensively in a video before. It sets up everything well, the art is very pretty, but most of all it sells the relationship between Ko and Chiyo very well in a way that makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. There's some moments and dialogue in the latter half of the chapter which really moved me with how connected these two characters feel. For issue 31, we have Kaitagami Chapter 2, A Fine Young Man. This really marks my obsession with this series. There's so many great little drawings of Chiyo in this, where she goes into her owl form or just makes funny faces. It also reinforces everything from Chapter 1 and continues the dynamic of Chiyo being this silly but very loving and supportive mother figure for Ko, which just melts my heart. For issue 32, we have Ichi the Witch Chapter 40, Succession. The conclusion of the Bakugami arc holds this chapter that's mostly Ichi and Gokuraku talking about Ichi enjoying his company and wanting him to join him in his quest to fight magics, but Gokuraku is unsure, burdened by all the feelings surrounding his country and his sister. It's a really nice chapter that shows a great depth to these characters and illuminates how much they care for each other. For issue 33, we have Kagurabachi Chapter 86, Quickening. This is the conclusion to Chihiro vs. Sumura, and it ends with Sumura seeing again, realizing he shouldn't be going through all of this alone. Part of that is seeing that Chihiro's Enten is a blade meant to destroy the other blades. Him and his dad, unbeknownst to him, were forging a new future together, which is a sentiment I really love. Kagurabachi here preaches about opening up to others, embracing your loved ones and not pushing them away, working together instead to carve a path forward. This page in particular, with Chihiro looking onward at Sumura and Iori, really gives me pause. It's very heartfelt yet bittersweet for him. It really shows that Chihiro is being propelled by his revenge and his love for his father, and he kind of has to muddle through those feelings, sift through them to pick which path is best. And in this case, he reunites Sumura with Iori in a way which I think shows that he has chosen the path of love. It's a very nice way to end this fight. For issue 34, we have Chapter 5 of Kaitagami, Heavy as It Should Be. This chapter gives us some more background on Chiyo, but I think I just like it so much because it has a lot of little gag moments. It has some nice art, as well as a few good bonding moments for Ko and Chiyo as well. For issue 35, we have Ichi the Witch 44, Present. This is a chapter that builds up the world a bit more in some fun ways, but the highlights are the focus on Komugi, the introduction of her sister Speaker, and Ichi having a great moment where he gets Descaris a gift, a thank you for making him a part of her family. My favourite moments of Ichi are when this idea of family is tackled. It's sweet and it's nice seeing Ichi perform this genuinely kind gesture. You can just feel it and see it in these characters' eyes. For combined issue 36-37, we have Kaitagami Chapter 7, Empty. This is a more action-packed chapter of the series that sees the feelings of both Ko and Chiyo lit ablaze as they fight for each other in various ways. There's some very cool art at the end of this chapter where Chiyo kind of takes over Ko, and the antagonist of this arc, the tiger character, is also really cool. For issue 38, we have Witch Watch Chapter 213, Childhood End Part 2. This chapter marks Nico going away, and we return to the messy dynamic between her and Moi. There's a gratefulness that's exuded by Nico for all that Moi has done for her as a carer and a friend. We get a confession here too that I don't find odd but very genuine, and it moved me quite a bit. For issue 39, we have Ichi the Witch Chapter 47, Komugi Harvest. This is a chapter that focuses on Komugi again, and she really gets to stand out on her own, and this moment solidifies her as a well-written and likable character to me. You get to hear about her experiences, thoughts, and how she feels about the other characters and her job, and she's very genuine about it all, so it's hard not to like her after this. It also has a scene where Ichi rejects Speaker that's really funny. For issue 40, we have Akane Banashi 172, A Fool for Rakugo. This is a brilliant chapter focusing on Karashi, the way he's evolved as an artist, and the importance of passing down the torch of traditional art, but also making something new that's been informed by those traditions. Him making up his own Rakugo story is such a highlight of the entire series, and it made this chapter super fun. For issue 41, we have One Piece chapter 1159, Island of Fate. The Harold Rocks God Valley flashback is in full swing here, and so much is being brewed. There are so many characters all convening together in one place. It's just super exciting and kind of a big fan service moment as a One Piece fan. For issue 42, we have One Piece chapter 1160, the God Valley incident. This flashback continues giving us many everybody is here moments, which as a fan is just super fun to behold, to see everyone together as their younger selves. It also showcases the depravity of the world government and sells the weight of what this event is to come really well. It's a great chapter for hyping up just the God Valley incident as a whole. For issue 43, we have Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo chapter 3, Swimming Through the Forest. This is a great bottle chapter that sold me on Modulo. The focus on this shark in the woods that turns out to be something a lot more normal and humanistic in origin is a fun hook, but then it starts to drill in some of its narrative about coexistence, and this example of humans and tigers is one of many we would see throughout the series. It's wordy but in a thoughtful and contemplative way, which I enjoyed a ton. For issue 44, we have Akane Banashi 176, What I Should Have My Eye On. This is a fantastic chapter, firstly through its depiction of Rakugo. This toys with the medium itself, panel layouts and compositions in some fun, artistic and impressive ways that pull you into its story, which in itself is the talking about of this chapter, which is about pulling others into these stories. This chapter is very dense in what it's exploring, I feel, to the extent that I can read and reread and learn more or feel differently about what it's trying to convey, which sometimes are the best kind of chapters. At this point, it's easy, I feel, to say Akane Banashi is a masterpiece. This chapter is one to have your eye on for sure. For issue 45, we have Akane Banashi 177, Even Deeper. Expounding on the last chapter, this one digs even deeper into what Akane is doing, disappearing into and becoming Rakugo herself. She takes over the entire theater. I find it hard to fully wrap my head around. This begs for analysis, but I believe in it and its emotions wholeheartedly. It is resplendent in how it hooks you in and perfectly conveys what it wants you to, thanks to how well written the story is and how well crafted its art is. Especially this spread in particular is very memorable and makes me feel a lot of different things. It's drawn in such a soft and rich way. For issue 46, we have Kaidagami chapter 16, Changed. Ko and Chio face off against Tauti here, and we get some great moments between them, realizing their mutual love has changed them both for the better. They trust each other and want to protect one another. We also get Huazi reflecting on her situation, her lack of a caring, loving figure in her life, which is paralleled nicely to Ko and Chio, though in a much more melancholic way. Though the manga approaches its premature end, it still manages to build on its characters well in this penultimate chapter. For issue 47, we have JJK Modulo 7, The Robbed. This is the climax of a prior arc, which leads into a bunch of downtime and Cross faking to be Maru, going to an amusement park with Tsurugi and Yuka. Predominantly why I love this chapter so much is the discussion Cross and Yuka have. It's earnest and genuinely quite human. Two people coming together to try to understand, to discuss differences in values, culture, and the subject of empathizing. Both perspectives are valid and different, and even if now Cross sounds more antagonistic and harder to empathize with, future chapters make it easy to understand where he's coming from, and in retrospect make this chapter better since it gives you context to understand Cross's point of view. It's a very dense chapter that I could find more in each reread that would enrich the meaning I've already found. Though I think one idea is very clear, to hurt and steal is easy, it perpetuates a cycle, but ending the cycle, to express kindness is hard and takes great effort, and I feel like this notion is very evocatively portrayed here. There are moments in this chapter which I think will come to reverberate through the entire series to come, and we'll come back to look at this one and really feel its weight in the future when Modulo is over. For issue 48, we have Gonron Egg Chapter 1, Egg of God. Gonron Egg Chapter 1 is a really fun chapter introducing a cool post-apocalypse world, the threat of the Drakarchs, and it sets up Gonron and Oma as a pair who aim to change things. Nothing about it is as deep as some of the other chapters I've discussed, but it was all super fun as a debut chapter, and it gave me everything I wanted from a new action fantasy series. For issue 49, we have JJK Modulo Chapter 9, Duraval Bobody Mechika Part 2. Building on Modulo's themes of coexistence and empathy, it's important that we're shown the struggles and lives of the Simurians. The prior chapter was great and set up much of what this chapter runs through, leading ultimately to tragedy, but in that are lessons learned from a past friend to coexist and push onwards, which culminates in this moment that honestly brought me to my knees. Let's go far beyond the sky to find neighbors, a warm, hopeful, and idealistic spread and message that's beautifully captured by Iwasaki in all of its sparkly glory. It feels like some of my favorite Gundam New Type moments where despite the cold vastness of society and the universe, there may be hope out there in the stars for others who can share this existence with us peacefully. For issue 50, we have JJK Modulo 10, Majority Vote. This is another dense modulo chapter this time, where we're out of the flashback and it's focused on the Simurian vote. Should they coexist with humanity, or should they betray them? And we look towards Cross. He thinks back on everything, his rage at the past and what's been taken from him, but also the humans he's met along the way. There's hope here that things can be better, that despite parties on both sides not wanting to coexist, there are those that still want to try. Also, this chapter has some very fun downtime moments at the end regarding planning a dinner party for the Simurians. The levity is much appreciated. For issue 51, we have JJK Modulo 11, Cultural Exchange. There's a lot more of Modulo building everything up here with a greater focus on levity and character building moments for the core cast. I mostly like this chapter because it's nice, though the ending also gives it a big calm before the storm vibe, and the dread the last page conveys is palpable. Finally, for issue 52, we have One Piece 1166 New Stories. We end the year with the end of God Valley, providing us a nice capstone for the event. We get to digest this monumental moment, reflect on all the paths it's created that lead to the future. There's also the loss of Rocks and how that affects Loki, as well as Harald, which leads to a very substantial development that feels like it will greatly impact the arcs to come, which has me excited for 2026 chapters. It is the perfect place to be in the end of the year, looking forward to the future. And those were my favourite chapters of 2025. Like I said in the beginning, if there's something you think I skipped or missed, please let me know what your favourite moments or chapters were of the year in the comments below. If you want more videos like this, I will have recently released a video going over the covers of Shonen Jump in 2025, talking about all their artwork. I also have a ton of other videos on the magazine, on its cancelled manga, through my X-Files series, where I take a look at X series you may remember reading in a bit more detail. There's also my History of Shonen Jump series, where I run through the magazine year by year, talking about every single series that released, big or small. I've recently finished the 1997 video that sees the debut of One Piece, so if you want to see what the magazine was like the year One Piece dropped, have a look at that one. If this video was specifically something you really enjoyed, I'll consider doing it again next year. Just let me know if you enjoyed it in the comments again. As always, a huge thank you goes out to all my patrons who help make these videos possible. It honestly really helps and gives me the motivation to keep yapping about manga for all eternity. If you'd like to join up, you can do so for as little as $1, where you'll get access to a host of bonus videos, access to polls, and your name read out in the credits. For any tier $3 and above, you'll also get a little doodle to represent you in the credits of videos too, like the following cool people. Thank you, Trinity, Jade, Kazukugairu, Circle Zero, Holly the Apothecary, Mayu, It's Fako, Yellowtail, Lay Slugget, Chris P. Bacon, Chohenshin, Fullmetal, Unquestionable, Yuzakura Psycho, Wizzle, Violent, Cactus, Joni, City Name E, Vino Burrito, Caffeine Dad, Cryonaut, Crash, 41IZ, Hong, Jamie Reynolds, Manu, Poke Emblem, James Miller, Chopa Monkey, Just a Virus, Star Sphinx, PK Broly, Fenrir Black, Elijah Espinoza, Neo Humanoid, Mark Nielsen, Electro Pirate, Jay Vasso, Three Frogs in a Trench Coat, Sir Flash, Gay Shark, Slimy Okra, Gidista, Wavy Sky, TG Talks Manga, John Jerry 722, Andrew, Zenomat, Missile, Tara Elizabeth, Stratomega 13, Dennis Tambek, Jubei, Lise, Frog Dude, Back on Earth, Hilltop, Vako Draws, Otaku Gamer X, Deadpan, Shy Monkeys, Jonathan Dragonet, John Sanford, Color, Jaime, Strawberry Prosione, Vaz, Palette, Ruiner, Juice, Kurumi Nox, Eric Gorski, Miss Thishira, Grizz Exploder, Dextora, Enya Showo, Cheese, Emmy, Benjamin, Tenmaku Lover, Taifumi Studios, and Ignate. Thank you all so much for being patrons, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to be kind and take care.